Today on Initiating Insight. Thank you for tuning into Initiating Insight with Sibongile. Welcome. Today in the studio we are joined by a young man whose name is Kgaugelo.
Yes.
Mogwale. Kgaugelo Mogwale is, what are you?
Well, I'm a young Christian, passionate about youth ministry, passionate about the country, very much involved in politics on a professional level and also on the ground.
I just thought he must just do that himself. And my question of who are you was actually rhetorical, but he decided to just do the job, which he did it perfectly well, actually. So, yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And today we are talking about God in today's politics. And when we get the definition of politics, is defined as the activities that are associated with the governance of the country. And now if we have to define who God is, since we're talking God, and who's God?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, thank you very much, Bongi. First and foremost, I feel that I was too young, but we need to go back to 1994 for this country. If you want to talk about God in today's politics, we need to realize a God-given vision for this country. If you look at what we had to go through, you just see the life of Israelites coming from Egypt, going to the Promised Land. And that vision was given to Nelson Mandela. But over the years, we've seen that vision just fading away. And I want to say that I'm beginning to feel that we are no longer in his presence. This God that we referred to in the life of South Africa in 1994.
But who is this God? That's my question. Who is this God? Because I was liberal in defining what politics.
Well,
and since we're talking about God and politics, and so who is God if we have to define? And you're talking about the God of 1994, who gave us the vision, whom we do not live by anymore, or rather we do not follow. So who is God? In your view, your own opinion of who you think God is.
God is a loving Father, not only loving, but He's protective, and He's very caring for His kids. In this context, kids are South Africans. And because He loved us, like we say in the Bible, loved the world so much. I'm not saying Nelson Mandela was Jesus Christ, but I'm saying what He gave to us was God showing South Africans, this is how much I love you. And this is the path that you need to walk. He was calling us to live, as South Africans of all race, South Africans who will hold hands and actually build a new country. And that's the God I'm referring to.
And when we talk about Nelson Mandela, sometimes I get jealous that we mention him as the savior of the country, and which is actually not entirely true. So can we, at least initiating insight, acknowledge that there were other people around him? So he was the person in the forefront, perhaps a pioneer. A prefect, maybe, Abona, you can say, but there were other people supporting him.
God will always choose someone among many who are working. Hence, even in a church context, you've got pastors, and not all are pastors. You've got your deacons, and in other churches they call them stewards. Not all are leading, and therefore Nelson Mandela became the leading figure of a South African struggle. And Nelson Mandela actually represented what I believe was a picture of God for South Africa. Not that Nelson was God, but it was a picture that was painted, a picture of reconciliation.
I'm glad you said that.
A picture of South Africans who are uniting towards building a new future, a future of a forgiving country. I mean, a picture of let's forget about the past and build a new future, more like that.
I may seem a bit like I said, I'm jealous, and maybe I have a problem with. I have no problem at all. For that matter, there is a relation there between my family, and so I'm not. I don't have a problem at all. No. I have no problem at all with Mr. Mandela. What I like about what you said, that he he represented what God was, not necessarily that he is God or
No,
he
he's
was
not.
God.
He was not
and
God.
and I like that, because then that speaks to the fact that since he was in that position and in that place of being used by God, then anybody else can be.
Absolutely.
Anybody else that is
Absolutely.
willing. So
Absolutely.
it did not just end with him, because he was not supernaturally special.
True, but you see the difference is that
But
when-
he was there and he was
Yeah.
available for God to
yeah.
to
The
use
difference
him.
that when God calls you, you must be willing to make adjustments for
Yeah.
him to use you.
Uh-huh.
I mean, with him going to jail for 27 years, I believe it was part of God just preparing him for what he has called him to do. I think others today are taking us away from that vision because they are not sacrificing anything for them to deliver that vision.
Where are the people that went with him? Pela, he was not the only one who was in jail for 27 years.
I mean,
Where are those?
many of them have actually passed on. You know, you think of the likes of O.R. Tambo, Walter Sisulu. Now recently, you know, there are a lot of, Albertina Sisulu. The part of them that were involved, many of them are not with us today. But I think we as Christians, we need to really go back to basics and actually revive that God-given vision in the context of how do we influence communities. Today, when you listen to people are divisive in their talk. They're no longer uniting. Remember when 94, we were actually talking about a rainbow nation. And other people are even calling that a dream that will never work. And I say, I mean, it's not true. 95, when we had the rugby here, South Africans came together. And Nelson Mandela took the lead. I think currently we lack leaders who are leading the country into the right direction. We don't have anyone actually leading the country towards that vision that we had. We've got people that are doing other things that have got nothing to do with what God gave us in 1994.
What is Yabona manje, it's that moment of Sibongile moment on Initiating Insight where I have so much in my head and I want to ask him so many questions, but I'm also thinking of the time that we have or don't have, and I'm stuck. When we talk of 1994, you talk so much of going back and you refer rather so much to 1994 and Mandela. What is happening now? As our topic today, God in today's politics. Is God still in today's, and can God in the first place be associated with politics?
Absolutely. I feel that we are in the wilderness, just like the Israelites going to the promised land. They were disobedient. They were no longer listening to their leaders. But in this context, it's even worse. No one is providing leadership. If people are complaining in the wilderness, when they complained about lack of water, Moses would actually go to God and say, but hey, these people are now really, they're fighting me about their needs, so do something about it. But currently we are, as a country, I feel we're in the wilderness. We are in the wilderness with God, but away from Him. You look at before 94, the likes of Desmond Tutu, when they spoke against the apartheid government. Well, unfortunately, he's old now, but he continued doing so. He spoke against Thabo Mbeki. But who is doing it today? Who are the Christian leaders today who are speaking against, this government that is not delivering on the promises of our democracy? Because I guess maybe we've got our hands in the cookie jar, and then maybe we are not able to speak against those things. And I think, therefore, we need to go, when I say go back to the ground, that's where then we build a society based on what was promised by our democracy, not by Nelson Mandela, not by those who fought for it. You know that when democracy came, it promised so much. It promised a better life for all. A better life for all would mean in a safe country where we don't have crime. A better life for all, it's not about jobs, but a better life for all would be where we don't have nyaupe, all these drugs and issues that are related to young people. Because there is sustainability of lives through programs that are benefiting people.
Do you think perhaps the problem could have been because we did not understand what democracy is to begin with? But before you can answer that, we need to take a break. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Initiating Insight with Sibongile, and today we are talking about God and in today's politics, and I am with Ukhaukelo Mokhwale. This young man is vibrant and is involved in politics, and that's why we're having this topic today, because I thought he's got a thing or two to share, which I thought was important enough to be on Initiating Insight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we went on a break, I was asking Oguti, while you were going, while we were telling us about what freedom is and what it is not, do you think that perhaps in the first place, the understanding of democracy was lost to begin with? That's why perhaps we are all over the place and we don't understand. That's why we cannot even follow in the legacy that Ubaba Nelson Mandela had, started.
I think we can never achieve anything when we're not united. Mm-hmm. And talking about God, that's when the devil comes in. Mm-hmm. When people are not united in what they do, then there's opportunity for people to be divided. And in so doing, they'll not be following what was set out for them. So what actually happened after, I would say, 2007 and Polokwane, when the ANC went for their conference, first time ever we saw clear divisions in the ruling party where then, they voted for someone else and they changed. But you could also see the vision now fading away. ANC was no longer speaking for South Africans about South Africa, but ANC was beginning to speak for itself in South Africa, for themselves and not the people of South Africa. Sure. Because before, you had the calls that were made that we must unite and deliver on the promises of our democracy. We must unite and deliver on a better life for all. We must unite and defend our democracy. But what you now started seeing, remember they came back, they were saying that, the groups like the Scorpions needed to be disbanded because they were representing the previous government, suddenly, So when people begin to have this sort of dividing the nation along their own interests, that's where we had a problem. We understood what was being delivered in 1994. But the problem is that those that took power from the Nelson Mandelas of this world, they did it for themselves and no longer for South Africans. And that's why we are here today.
So couldn't we then say that, or ask a question, so where's God? And what do we expect God to do? Or what should the people who believe in God do now?
I think those who believe in God and are holding positions of power in political parties, in government, they know exactly what is expected of them.
Do they?
Absolutely, but unfortunately...
Or should they?
No, they know. But unfortunately, they allow themselves to be captured by the things of this world, the life that comes with being a public rep, the life that comes with being a political party representative. Because at times, we know political parties do have policies, but we know that our duty as Christians is to be like a coffee seat. We must influence, the environment that we find ourselves in. But today, some people, you won't even know that they're Christians. When you went to a school, you would know that your principal is a Christian without asking. When you go to the corporate world back in the day, you would know that your boss is, because he would actually be saying, because we're in a democracy, I'm not going to force you that we go into prayer, but my office is open for prayer. You know? So we don't have that today. People feel like, if you are going to be talking Christianity, you're actually showing that you're weak. We are relying more on trying to show the world that we are powerful, but not God is. And I think God is not taking a break from South Africa. God is in our midst. But God is saying, okay, you know what, have a good time. I'll come back. He's done it to the Israelites. So it's okay. He does not impose. He doesn't. He's not taking a break from us.
Yes, he'll have a good time.
Have a good time, and I will definitely come. He's done it before.
When does he come?
Well,
because Mina, honestly, personally, I feel good. He should have come yesterday already.
No, many people are praying in as much as they did before 1994. You must remember a lot of people prayed behind the scenes for our democracy. And a lot of people are praying today for what God had given 1994 that we seem to be just destroying. And God will hear our prayers. Those few that are faithful will help us keep God in our midst.
You remind me now immediately of a scripture, and like I always say, when I do read the Bible, so of a scripture where Abraham was having this dialogue with God and say, okay, 50, God, will you destroy Sodom and Gomorrah?
Absolutely.
You know, he says, nah, okay, 50, yeah, okay. Then he realizes that, you know what, there's only 40, yeah, and then Kaspedi 30 biang, you know, and then he got to what, 5 or 10?
And then
you know,
you continue counting.
You know, and I feel, Guti, perhaps that's where we are.
Yeah, Bongi, let me just say this. I've shared this with a lot of people, that 94 gave us a picture of where we are called to be. And hence now I'm referring back to 94. We have something that we can refer to. Now, when we are destroying something, it has to be something that was built. So 94 was built. And that picture is there. But we must not stop preaching and painting the picture, even in young ones' minds, because they need to know what is it that God wanted to achieve for South Africa. And then they will help us build that South Africa. It will continuously be a new South Africa.
You really just sounded like my grandfather right now. I mean, who was in prison next to
Do I sound that old?
Mandela. No, I mean, but he's, you know, you share the same lamentation where even when we do golf dinner for him and things like that, he would say, today is about celebration. I don't want to talk about politics because my heart grieves over what has happened. And he looks and he refers back to that picture of 1994 and what was built for 1994. And he says, it's not what it is. It's not what it should be. And he doesn't even want to talk anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so you just reminded me of my grandfather right now, really. When we are now in 2017,
Yes.
yes. And what do you think should be happening now? Yes, we know, Guti, whatever it is, 1994 is not happening. How do we get out of where we are without killing anyone?
Yeah. Talking about God in today's politics, let me just take you back. Many of us who are strong Christians today, we had a blessing of having grandmothers. Somehow, today's parents are not doing what grannies did, Christian grannies did with us. Some people would think you can't force people to go to church. True. But those grannies instilled values of what I would call being God-fearing.
Please hold it right there.
Yeah.
We need to take a break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to Initiating Insight with Sibongile. I am sitting with Ukhaugelo Mugwale. Before we went on a break, and if you've just joined us, welcome, and you've missed quite something. Before we went on a break, he was telling us about the fact that in today's society, we no longer have those grannies who used to pray. And I'm thinking, now you're opening another can of worms, because I'm thinking nobody wants to be called grannies today.
Absolutely. It's not really about the grannies, but the values that, made us who we are. Where a community was actually coming together to build a son, a daughter, for that community. But today, we're self-serving in what we do. I remember very well, I've got a great-grandfather who was a lawyer and would avail himself just to help people with advice. And you don't get that today. People live for themselves. And that's why even in the politics itself, it's no longer about serving South Africans, but it's about people doing it for themselves and not the country. And I think if we are serious about bringing God back into the life of politics in South Africa, then we must actually go back to basics in our Christian life first. We must make sure that our Christianity will influence communities, will influence the political space, but not for us to become Christians only on Sunday. And when we go into the corporate world or in our political parties, We become politicians who do not care. We become politicians who do not remember who God is in the life of this country. We become politicians who don't actually remember what is it that God wants for South Africa.
I think, man, khawkhelo, man. You know, you know, I think one of the problems is that we grew up thinking that God is a thing that you go to on a Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is your life. And then Sunday, that's why you would hear, Warwakana saw on Sunday. Why are you swearing on Sunday? As if it's okay to swear on Monday or Wednesday. You know, another thing is that while you talk like this, and I've had people who come to Initiating Insight, and I see that all of you have shared the same passion, the same view, the same desire. You've lamented about the same issues, which will be moral degeneration. And 2017, I know, again, in the scriptures, where I read that in the last days, there will be moral degeneration. People will be lovers of themselves more than the lovers of God.
Absolutely.
And I believe that when you love God, then you are able to love his people. People's love will grow cold. So isn't it possible that we live in that era where there's nothing we can do because the Bible has said these things will happen?
The difference is, back in the day, listen to political songs at the political gatherings. They're about anti-this, anti-that, anti-white monopoly capital, anti-this, the other candidate anti-this. But back in the day, these people even used to sing worship songs. I mean, if you think of the songs, Liza Lisi Dingalako, they come from there. They kept God in every gathering, you know. But now suddenly they feel that they can do this alone. They can do this without God.
But it was prophesied, so what's the
No,
problem?
I want to come back to your question directly. The real deal is that I believe that God, regardless of that we might be coming to the end times, but God still has purpose. Those who are born yesterday or last week, God's still saying, I want to sustain and maintain a relationship with them. And therefore, it's our duty that even when we are perishing, we must instill these values of bringing God in everything that we do, including politics.
Should we bring God in everything that we do, or should we give everything that we do to God?
I believe Christians are not called to go to church, but Christians are called to be a church. Therefore, the church will even become a political party environment, because when you're a Christian everywhere, God will lead that conversation. God will lead that vision. God will lead the country, because we are not Christians that go to church, but we are Christians that become a church in the world.
Earlier you said that God is looking and watching and saying, oh, you have a good time. Have a good time. So we may have suggested that God is this person who says, well, I have everything in control, so my children are having fun. When you're done, let me know. As if we're talking about this force or this person that will just come and say, wave a magic wand.
The thing is, our Father does not impose. He's a God of relationship. He's a God that will always, we know what happened with the prodigal son. I don't want to preach, Mongi. He will let you have the freedom, but still will welcome you when you come back.
So,
yeah.
You're saying he's a God of relationship.
Yeah.
So that means that God will not come as this force and as this Superman and say, when wave a magic wand. He is going to work through his people.
Absolutely, but that relationship must be maintained. Hence, I said the grannies would even pray for those who do not believe in this God back in the day. And that made a difference. Because even those that he did not believe in received God's mercy in their lives as they were involved in the struggle. Perfect example in the Bible was when, I can't remember, Darius was telling those guys that they must pray to, Nebuchadnezzar, I think, that they must pray to him. Eventually, actually, he got to know God through them. They prayed to their God, and he he got to know God through them.
Or when he wanted to put those three guys into
Absolutely.
the fire furnace.
Now
Okay,
today we have Christians who know God, who will give money at church on Sunday, but will not bring God in the world. Where they work, where they're involved in politics, we need to change that. And therefore, we should actually even be encouraging Christians that are gifted beyond just ministry to get involved in all these things so that we can change these things. And hence I'm involved.
All right. We need to encourage those who know God to be involved in politics.
In everything.
So they may change the status quo of where we are. This is where we live it because of time. Thank you so much, for having come through. This is Initiating Insight with Sibongile, and we are saying good night for today. Please do engage with us on our Facebook page, Sibongile Mlangeni Initiating Insight, our Instagram, Sibongile_Mlangeni, our Twitter, Sibongile M06. Good night.